I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being with us this morning on this Tuesday. Actually, lost my microphone for some reason. I think I know what's going on. I've worn this little mute switch out, and now we have some issues. It's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And so a lot of folks, I mean, I pulled up to the station today, and I already noticed, cars that are normally here before me, not here this morning. So there you go. Got a lot to be thankful for, you know, in the midst of everything that's going on. This country has a whole lot to be thankful for. I have a lot to be thankful for just in my personal life. Anyway, I'm thankful that the board for this week, this short, abbreviated week, thankful for another opportunity. Here at Conduit, we're thankful for the opportunity to get to bring you the news. And in the last couple of weeks, man, we've been bringing you the news that nobody else wants to talk about. And we're excited to continue to do that in the future. I told you on Thursday or Friday, I think Thursday and Friday, that we've got some big changes coming, a big announcement coming, and we will clue you guys in on that coming up in probably after the holiday, but yeah, in the coming days and weeks. The telephone number, 870-275-9799 is telephone number if you would like to contribute to the conversation. We have a good show for you. So our first guest is going to be on at 7:05. You've heard him on the program before. His name is Luke McCoy. He's from Family Council. So we've got him coming up at 7:05. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. It's always great to have him on. I bet Chick-fil-A comes up. Number two, and this is what I'm really excited about, we're going to be talking for the first time on this program with a guy by the name of Dr. Wayne Johnson. Now, he is a candidate for the United States Senate out of Georgia. He's running as a replacement for the senator there that had to step aside because of his struggle with Parkinson's disease. Senator Isaacson of Georgia said he's going to resign at the end of this year. So what that means is you have a situation where the governor of Georgia, Governor Kemp, going to have to appoint somebody. And then there's, on top of that, there's going to be, I believe, an election at some point as well. So you have like the appointment for the remainder of the term. I think that's how it goes. And then you're going to have the election. So this Dr. Wayne Johnson, he wants to be that guy. Now, Wayne Johnson was on Tucker Carlson last week. Joe, I've got this queued up. Can you go to the Wayne Johnson, the johnsonforsenate.com, and there's two tabs open. One of them is a YouTube video. Just to preview what we've got coming up for you at 7:30. This guy is specialized in the student loan crisis and the student debt crisis. And that's one of the things. He was working in the Trump administration, the Chief Operating Officer of the Department of Education of Federal Student Aid. That's who this guy is, Dr. Wayne Johnson. Go ahead. I've got it queued up. This is just a little bit from Tucker Carlson last week. I'm sure many of you heard it.
We're moved to do this.
The more I looked at it, it became crystal clear that the laws that form the current student loan processing system quite frankly, are built and designed to be highly disadvantageous to students. It's really a structure that continues to foster the opportunity for colleges and universities to continue to draw unlimited amounts of money from the government. And it became ever more clear to me that the only way this is going to get changed is through law change in Congress. And I'm ever more convinced that somebody in the Senate's got to drive it forward. So I was moved to do this because working with the Secretary, working under the Trump administration, we were doing and continue to do amazing things to make the processes work to adhere to the law.
Right.
But it became crystal clear that the law has got to change, and the only way the law can change is somebody taking it on in the Congress, and I believe the Senate is the place.
So the law was written by lobbyists for hire.
There's so many avenues. There's so many ways we could go with that, because I'm not sure what the solution is, and I want to ask Dr. Johnson when he comes on at 7:30 about that. But basically, the incentives are completely backwards when it comes to higher education. I think we've known that for a while. Really, just the whole structure. The university system doesn't really look at the students as customers. I'm not even sure if they ever have, because you do have that apprentice relationship or understanding going in. But certainly at this point, there is no incentive for them to control costs. Higher education has no incentives to control costs. Now, there's probably higher education folks listening to me said, "Oh, yes, we do. You haven't been in our budget meetings, blah, blah, blah." Okay, well, let me rephrase it. Whatever incentive you think you have to control spending and control costs in the higher education system, it's not enough. It's not normal. It's not like a normal business owner's incentive. Trust me. I mean, it's just not. And so if you have the federal student loan program that's guaranteeing you customers, people who are just going to qualify for, to come to your school and to go into debt, which is what we have right now. And then you have the guidance counselors that are constantly telling folks, like, you're not going to be successful unless you go to college, and college isn't for everybody. College is for people. I mean, I'm not saying we need to get rid of college, but folks, I don't know if you've seen this, the enrollment in Arkansas colleges is decreasing. It is declining. And they are starting to get very uncomfortable because they're seeing what's coming. There are less and less folks going to college to have that traditional college experience. And I think it's because it's just too expensive. And I think you've got a lot of people that are starting to say, I don't want to be in debt. I don't want to be in debt, for this amount of time. I'd rather just make my way in a trade or something like that. Or start out going to a 2-year college that's much more affordable and then transferring later. All of that's affecting the bottom line. Again, I'm not really sure what the answer is, but I'm telling you, there is a storm coming when it comes to the college debt student loan crisis. There certainly is. Anyway, we're going to be talking to him coming up at 7:33. In the meantime, you had the First Lady, Melania. She received, Joe, show this. This is up on Twitter. Melania Trump participating in the White House Christmas tree delivery. Note the tweet on the screen from the White House. FLOTUS receiving the Christmas tree. They had the White House band there, or what is that, a Marine band? Sounded beautiful. Listen to this. Very, very beautiful trumpets here. As the Christmas tree, is being delivered. Notice it's a Christmas tree and not a holiday tree. That is sure to make folks pretty disappointed, right? And there's Melania Trump walking down the steps. This just drives leftists nuts, by the way. The response to some of these tweets, these leftists in their bubble, essentially like, we're sorry. We're so sorry. Not everybody voted for them. And it's just like, what are you doing? We're just talking about receiving a Christmas tree. Note that it is a Christmas tree, not a holiday tree. White House Christmas. See, right there on the side of the wagon, White House Christmas tree, 2019. A lot of people think, speaking of first ladies, former First Lady Michelle Obama, some people thinking that she's going to end up running for president because the Democrats have no chance. Now, I'm not really. I saw Tucker Carlson, by the way. He said something about that he thinks it's going to. Look at the size of that Christmas tree, by the way. The thing is huge. He said something about Michelle Obama is going to come in the middle of the primary season and announce she's running, and that's the only thing that can unify the Democrats right now. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. I don't know. She's got a really good life. Not to mention the president's going to start arresting folks pretty soon. Did I say the president? I meant the Justice Department. So I don't know. We'll see. But here is one reason that she just might. And it's this headline from Breitbart News. Democrats' worst nightmare. Polls show 34% of black likely voters approve of Donald Trump. If that is true, the game is over for the Democrats. And it's not just one poll, it's two. And one of them's Rasmussen, and the other one is, let's see here, Rasmussen. There were two of them because I know there was, let's see here. I know there's one. Somebody on the front page of Breitbart right now, you have this CNN contributor who is absolutely furious. These polls. She refused. That's right. Anna Navarro insults black Trump supporters because this has triggered reporters on the left. CNN political commentator Anna Navarro mocked polls that showed significant black support for President Trump. Let's see here. Tweeting Monday that the polls have only been conducted in the homes of Ben Carson, Kanye, that sheriff guy with the hat, and those two cubic zirconia and polyester spandex ladies. So that's the tolerant left for you. She just doesn't like the fact that Emerson. So there you got it was Emerson. Rasmussen at 34% black approval of the president. The Emerson poll at 34.5%. What if it's? I mean, we know that the polls haven't been that accurate in terms of they always seem to underestimate support for the president. That was certainly true in 2016. Rasmussen was the closest. What does that say? I mean, could it be even higher than that? Man, I mean, we've talked about this before. The Trump campaign celebrated the news. It might shock Democrats that support for President Trump is rising with black Americans, but it shouldn't. Blacks are more prosperous than ever because of President Trump with record low unemployment and rising paychecks. Now, you know Turning Point USA. They had a black leadership conference. Did you know about this, Joe? They had a black leadership conference, and you know who was there? The comedic duo, the Hodge twins. Now, the Hodge twins are these YouTube sensation, right? And they've come out as conservatives. They do comedy shows, and they're pretty racy folks. So go watch some of their YouTube video. Do it. I'm not going to recommend anybody go watch their YouTube videos. I'm going to just say that right now, right? But they were at the Black Leadership Conference, and this is what they said. Go ahead, Joe. We got this YouTube video here, right where I've queued it up, and I will stop when I tell you to. Although they kept it clean.
Just the other day, man, this lady on Instagram called me a bootlicking Uncle Tom. I was like, man, why can't I just be an Uncle Tom? I gotta lick their boots too.
It's at the Black Leadership Summit.
Hands, how many of y'all actually follow celebrities in Hollywood? All right, it's a few, y'all. That's good. That's real good. We follow a few black celebrities. They're liberal, of course, but we don't follow them for their intellect. No. We follow them because they're spreading nonsense. And each and every one of us need to know what that nonsense sounds like and looks like. So when that nonsense comes your way, you can destroy it. right? Like, I give you a perfect example. Cardi B, right? This woman has 50 million followers on Instagram, right? One day she's complaining about 40% of her check going to the government. The next week she's talking about Trump is a racist and to go vote for Bernie Sanders, a man who's going to take 75% of her paycheck. Look, every conservative, black conservative in this country is pretty much here today. And it's only like 200 of us. Right? We look like a bunch of runaways in here. So we all need to stick together and fight this battle together because there's not many of us.
All right, stop.
Yeah.
Again, the Hodge twins. The Hodge twins. And, okay, so I guess my point is, they are, there's a lot of people who are fans of theirs. Obviously, a lot of people in the African-American community who are fans of theirs. And they've come out as conservative. They're probably already being censored or throttled on YouTube. It's just, you got to assume that. I guess my point is, it's no surprise, and with the Trump campaign, if you actually, the media's, they're in their bubble, but if they're so disconnected from what's actually going on, they're not actually telling you what the news is. Meaning, what's new? What's new is Donald Trump is now counterculture. Like the movement, call it nationalism, whatever. It is based in the idea of we need to sell liberty and freedom and let people and quit this totalitarian, political correct thought police, speech police. We need to just let people be free. This is now like it's now the counterculture that's growing that the media just doesn't want anyone to know about, and it's happening with people like the Hodge twins. It's happening with the new media everywhere. The digital media everywhere is doing this, and the meme culture, that's the same thing, right? And yet you've got the Silicon Valley giants who want the political correct culture. They want the totalitarian of thought. They don't believe in freedom of speech because it could hurt someone's feelings. Dave Chappelle is another example of this counterculture that everyone's ignoring. Case in point, Dave Chappelle, black comedian, delivers this just amazing comedy show recently. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 0. The critics on Rotten Tomatoes give it a 0, and they won't let other people rate it. And once they open it up, all the critics hated it because they're leftists and they're worshiping this idea of political correctness and policing your speech, even in your jokes. We can't even be funny anymore or attempt to be funny. But all the people say, hey, we think this is pretty funny. This was one of the best stand-ups we've seen in a generation. We got to take a break. The counterculture, man, and the media not covering it at all. You could call it also the silent majority, but it certainly is, I think it's different than that. You've got polls showing 34% of black Americans supporting a Republican president. Think about that. That's game over for Democrats. Maybe Michelle Obama will have to get in order to try to counter this counterculture. Back in just a moment. Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
As we speak, Beijing is employing a whole-of-government approach, using political, economic, and military tools, as well as
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, man. Gene on Facebook, please stop before you scare Democrats. They have to have 99% of the black votes to win. Interesting. Also, Gene, this comment on Facebook, I miss the old days when enemies of the president committed suicide and drugged their dead bodies to Marcy Park. You forgot also, like, then they sprinkle some carpet fibers on them, on their right before they die. They take carpet fibers and they just kind of dust themselves, and then life extinguishes from their body. Telephone number 870-275-9799. If you would like to contribute to the program, this headline over at the Daily Wire. I can't stand it when Amanda Prestigiacomo, she's a writer for the Daily Wire. I don't have anything against her personally. I just have a problem pronouncing her last name. But this headline, Sarah Sanders, quote, I've been called to run for office. So Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she writes, left her post as President Donald Trump's White House secretary in June. There have been incessant rumors about her probable run for offices in Arkansas, likely for the governorship. Those rumors were given a boost on Sunday when Sanders all but confirmed her run to the New York Times. Quote, there are two types of people who run for office, people that are called and people that just want to be a senator or governor. I feel like I've been called. So, it sounds like she's running for something, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. That would certainly be an interesting primary. And who knows? I mean, I know Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin has already announced, and he's been making the rounds across the state, and I have to say, been making an incredible. He's been making a lot of really good points because he's been here and he's seen the growth in spending. He's seen everything that the state has not done, and he's in his speeches, to different Republican committees, he's certainly making that clear. I mean, we played this speech the other day from Cleburne County. But I will say this, here's my observation on the potential primary, and this is not till, my goodness, Governor Hutchinson's not done until let's see, it's next year, 2020, 2021, 2022. The election won't be till 2022, so we're talking about January 2023 before you have the next Arkansas governor, being sworn in. The last time there was a Republican primary for a governor, though, it was between Asa Hutchinson and Jan Morgan, and there was this crackdown on open debate, freedom of speech. Asa never debated. I guess my point will be, whatever happens, if there's a primary, the Republican Party will have to grow up and actually allow different opinions and debates to take place, that didn't happen the last time. There were county committees that didn't want Jan Morgan to speak. She was running as a Republican. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like it. The party of ideas and the party that claims to be, have open debate turned into the party of the leftists that burned down Cambridge for a moment. What I mean by that is, they just got mad you're not allowed to speak here. We don't want you to come and speak at our university. That's what some people did here in Arkansas during the last Republican primary for governor, and it's kind of shameful. All to protect Asa Hutchinson, and we see a lot more, right? I mean, hindsight is 20/20. You don't have to tell me twice. Back in just a moment.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
Propaganda to advance its influence and benefit its interests in the United States.
And I have wanted to welcome back to Arkansas Chairman Chu. Please give Chairman Chu a round of applause.
China is also applying this power in more proactive ways than ever before to exert influence and interfere in the domestic policy and politics of this country.
Chairman Chu, I got to know as he is the CEO and chairman of Shandong Ruyi Technology Group out of Shandong Province.
Over the past 17 years, China's GDP has grown ninefold. It's become the second largest economy in the world. Much of this success was driven by American investment in China. And the Chinese Communist Party has also used an arsenal of policies inconsistent with free and fair trade, including tariffs, quotas, currency manipulation, forced technology transfer, intellectual property theft, and industrial subsidies that are handed out like candy to foreign investment.
We've been to Shandong Province a number of times since I've been governor. We've called on people, and Chairman Chu gave us the opportunity to meet with him at Ruyi, at their technology group there in Shandong, and saw his incredible facility. We asked him to visit Arkansas. He did. So Chairman Chu, we're delighted to have you here. I'm excited about signing this agreement with you, and I welcome you to Arkansas.
These policies have built Beijing's manufacturing base at the expense of its competitors, especially the United States of America.
And I wanted to recognize Chairman Lee to my right.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome. Doug Thompson, ex-lobbyist Rusty Cranford, was sentenced to 7 years yesterday for bribes. This is a big deal. We covered this corruption story as much as we possibly could. Actually laid out a blueprint for many of the people who are in jail or are on their way to jail long time ago. You can Google or go to Conduit for Action. The cure for influence peddling in the state of Arkansas. Now, we still don't have the cure out there, by the way. We had some great ideas. Medicaid disclosure bill by former Senator Brian King, who, after he tried to run it, was primaried by the governor and defeated. Then you have the late Senator Linda Collins, who tried to make it illegal for attorneys to pass bills for clients. The governor found a primary opponent for her, and she was defeated. And those two ideas would have gone a long way into solving a lot of this stuff. But immoral people, because we are all immoral people, we are all fallen, and we all going to do things that we're not supposed to do. They're still going to find a way around laws. And that's why the government should just be as small as possible, because you count on it. So it should be as small as possible in what it can do to other people by force. Ex-lobbyist Rusty Russell Cranford gets 7 years for bribes. And Doug Thompson has the write-up on this in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Overall, this investigation so far, the federal officials here, they're pretty clear that it's not over yet. But overall, Milton Rusty Cranford also led, his plea also led to the convictions of 5 Arkansas legislators. And it's not over yet. We don't even know. Oh, and by the way, it's interesting to note that the very thing that the late Senator Linda Collins was trying to stop with her ethics reform bill on attorneys being legislators and representing clients unofficially before the legislature, the very thing she was trying to stop is the very thing the governor's nephew, Jeremy Hutchinson, was charged with. Essentially accepting bribes via clients. And for some reason, the legislature still doesn't want to pass that piece of legislation, even after the fact. It's really shocking when you think about it. And the only reason they haven't is because most Arkansans don't know what happened. If most Arkansans knew, there'd be enough of an outcry. And as Barack Obama once said in Little Rock, Arkansas, we will bend that arc of justice. Cranford appeared before U.S. District Judge Brian Wimes in Springfield. The charges came out of the Western District of Missouri. He spent $4 million making illegal campaign donations, kickbacks, to lawmakers from 2011 to 2017. And this was all to ensure that a Medicaid company kept getting grants, kept getting favorable legislation passed to make sure that nobody investigates them. It was all done so that a Medicaid company, a third-party company, a provider, would continue to receive large sums of taxpayer money. And this is the real insidious part. Okay, so let's say that Preferred Family Healthcare started out as a legitimate operation. And they're making money, and they're providing the service, and it's government money, but the government needs the third party to help with behavioral health issues or whatever. And then they start thinking, hey, let's take the taxpayer money that we're getting and let's tithe a portion of it to certain legislators to get more contracts, to get more grants, to get more everything. That's why it's such a big deal, and that's why the federal government got involved here, because you're talking about federal tax. You're talking, the Medicaid money, yeah, you're talking about state tax dollars, right? But only 30%. The rest you're talking about, 70% is funded by the federal government. You can't do that. That's why this thing had legs and went as far east as New Jersey. And this article does mention that the reason Rusty Cranford was denied bail back in March of 2018 was because he discussed the murder of that witness in New Jersey, meaning he was attempting to hire or talk about hiring a hitman to go take the witness out in New Jersey. I think Rusty Cranford is lucky that he got 7 years. Now, a lot of people are saying it's a steep sentence, because I think he was supposed to do about 10, and so it gives 7. I think maybe some people were expecting more like a 4-year sentence for this. But I think if you understand that how he was arrested to begin with. By the way, if Rusty Cranford hadn't been arrested because he was trying to talk about killing the guy or hiring a guy, this is according to the government, hiring a guy to go up to New Jersey and kill that witness, Don Jones, who also pled guilty. If Rusty Cranford hadn't have done that, Rusty Cranford probably wouldn't have been arrested. And if Rusty Cranford hadn't been arrested and sitting in a jail cell for a while, he probably, or he may not have actually, made the plea. Once he pled guilty, man, and the government here saying that he helped in multiple investigations, that he's sat down with federal investigators dozens of times, that he's helped prosecutors in the Western District of Missouri, and he's helped prosecutors in the Western District of Arkansas. And again, they say the investigation's not done, not over with. Cranford alone is liable. He's going to have to return the $3.73 million in taxpayer money that he stole. Wimes approved forfeiture of most of Cranford's remaining assets, but the total is likely to be a fraction. So he's got to pay this back. Now, Cranford, and I do not doubt, I'm not going to doubt Cranford's sincerity here, because I think anybody in this situation would feel this way. Cranford told the judge, quote, "I would like to say I'm sorry for anyone hurt by my bad choices." He added that he was, according to Doug Thompson, he added that he was deeply sorry for the consequences of his choices on his 3 children, one of whom is a minor with autism, and another who has serious behavioral health issues, according to previous court testimony. By all accounts, this is a tragedy for families that are involved. It just is. The judge noted that the sentence could have been longer. Cranford faced up to 10 years. "I hope this helps others realize," this is the judge, listen to this, Judge Wimes, "I hope this helps others to realize that they should help weed out not only corruption but other crimes. This is not a light sentence, but it is a heck of a lot lighter than it could have been. Bribery fosters the impression the government is up for sale to the highest bidder. Therefore, it has severe consequences that extend beyond those directly affected." Stop. I wonder how Jeremy Hutchinson feels right now about this sentence. 7 years. It is a steep sentence. "It's definitely going to send a message of deterrence," said Ferguson, who practices in Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee. That's the Memphis-based federal criminal defense attorney. Cranford, 60, has been in the Greene County, Missouri jail since February 21st, so he's been there for 22 months. That'll be credited. So essentially already served 2 years of the 7-year sentence. So he's got, and then of course we also have you got the Gosses who are implicated in all this, the heads, the executives, if you will, of Preferred Family Health Care. And let's see, cooperation noted. They talk about that, how he has, I mentioned that already, how he's cooperated in all of these cases. But they go through a list of legislators. So lawmakers that are in the scheme. So Doug Thompson, quote, 4 of the 5 lawmakers convicted of conspiracy-related charges in the case were serving in the legislature at the time. The 5th joined Cranford's lobbying firm and took part in the scheme as a lobbyist after leaving office. Those are State Representative Micah Neal, Senator John Woods, former State Rep Eddie Cooper. Then you've got Representative Henry Hank Wilkins IV, and former State Senator Jeremy Hutchinson of Little Rock. Woods, now keep in mind, I think we all knew steep sentences were coming when John Woods received an 18-year sentence for this. 18 years? That's nuts. I mean, it's not nuts, but you know what I mean. I'm just saying that's a long time. That's a long, long time. So, anyway, telephone number 870-275-9799. Will this stop the corruption in Arkansas. I will tell you this. They actually have to go through with real ethics reform, and the media, if they really want this type of corruption to end, they should be paying attention to the appearance of unethical behavior when it comes to the governor, his law firm, his sons, Chinese clients that are the same Chinese communist entities that have received taxpayer dollars. And the reason the media, that they are ignoring this story, right? Maybe because the governor, was saying great things about the Gazette being 200 years old, the Democrat Gazette. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out why. This doesn't make any sense to me at all. I think maybe the leftist media at this point wants to ignore it because it gives credence to the Joe Biden Ukraine scandal that they want you to think is no big deal. They want you to think it's cause to impeach the president. They don't want you to think that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden actually did anything illegal, which I think they did. So maybe that's why the leftist mainstream media is ignoring this. It's probably the simplest answer. But for the state media to ignore this story the way they have, to me, is giving a green light to other politicians to use their office for profit. I mean, you're basically giving a green light for more corruption in the state by not exposing this to your readers or to your audience. And I said it yesterday, and I'm going to keep saying it. I think this is one of the biggest stories that no one is talking about. The telephone number is 870-275-9799. You tell me why you think it's actually not happening. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm wrong. But, I mean, here, the report on this, I mean, Hunter Field, headline, former U.S. Attorney Bud Cummins was contacted by Ukrainian officials to try to get the information about corruption and the Bidens to somebody in the United States Justice Department to take a look at it. Bud Cummins, former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Arkansas, confirmed to the Arkansas Democrat Gazette that he was approached by intermediaries back in 2018 for Ukraine's then Prosecutor General, Yuri Lutsenko, who requested Cummins' assistance with contacting federal law enforcement authorities. So, what did Bud Cummins do, according to this? He contacted U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman of Manhattan. That's, I believe, in the Southern District of New York. They're not very reliable. But he gave him the information, which Cummins said he never vetted, but Cummins said he dropped the matter when Berman seemed uninterested after a brief phone call and several emails. So they tried to get this, and Bud Cummins tried to get this to somebody, get eyes on it. The allegations eventually made their way to President Donald Trump, and his call for an investigation of the Bidens is now at the center of the U.S. House of Representatives impeachment inquiry. The Democrat Party has created a world where you can commit crimes, and as long as you run for president, you can't be prosecuted for those crimes. I want you to think about that for a second. As long as we're a banana republic. Oh, I see these people on Facebook. We just don't do that here in America. Really? Really? If this were Barack Obama, everybody'd be giving him the benefit of the doubt. If this were any other president, they'd be giving him the benefit of the doubt. Number one, the call would have never leaked in the first place, or at least the whistleblower. None of that would have happened. The deep state would have been fine. The deep state is so involved in Ukraine and Russia and all of that stuff, and they don't want the people to know. They don't want the president to expose it. That's what all of this is for. This is all because the president's trying not to expose the Bidens. He's trying to expose everyone. Don't you understand? He's trying to expose everyone. And there are Republicans that have things to lose too. That's what people don't, that's what the media refuses to tell you. That's what your average leftist doesn't see. is that if you drain the swamp, there's going to be people on the right who've been playing where they shouldn't be playing as well. Trying to expose them all is what I can see. And that this is why you have the reaction that you do. Interesting, though. Quote, this is what Bud Cummins said to the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. It's basically a simple deal. Some people came to me with allegations. I tried to take them to the place I thought that something like that should be handled confidentially and professionally and officially. It didn't work out, and I dropped it. I didn't try to misuse the information and inject it into the general political debate, and I had no role getting it out there when it eventually did roll out. So now you have United States Senator Lindsey Graham. He's looking into the Bidens, says it doesn't pass the smell test. Biden saying something like, Lindsey Graham's going to regret this his whole life. What does that mean? Let me know what you think. Telephone number 870-275-9799. If this was any other president, you know what they'd say? Well, he's just doing his due diligence as commander-in-chief because he's, if there's corruption in a government, we don't want to send our money to a corrupt government, so he's trying to make sure that the corruption's over. And what's really being lost in all of this is, and you hear the ambassador say this last week, that the idea that Ukraine helped the Democrats in the 2016 election is now a conspiracy theory. This from the people that talked about Russia and Trump campaign collusion, which was the actual conspiracy theory that was debunked, that the Mueller investigation debunked. So frustrating. But that's what they don't want you to know, is that the president is really asking about the 2016 elections in Ukraine. And does that involve the Bidens? Yeah, you bet it does. Does it involve Hillary Clinton? Yeah. Does it involve the Democrat Party? Yeah. Does it involve their server and their CrowdStrike analysis of who hacked the Democrat? Oh, well, the Russians hacked the Democrat server because Bill Clinton said so. By the way, on the celebration of the 200-year anniversary of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, did anybody see those headlines? The next day, this was over the weekend, Saturday, they had this whole thing where the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette celebrates 200 years. And you know who was there? Bill Clinton was there. And he was shaking hands with our elected officials. I saw some photos, and I'm like, good grief, can we get over caring what Bill Clinton has to say about anything? Like, can we get over? Like, I'm telling you, like Bill Clinton telling the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, the truth matters. Hold to the truth. This guy was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Have you seen the painting of Bill Clinton in the dress, that was in Jeffrey Epstein's house? Have you seen the weird occult Egyptian temple on his island? All I'm saying, these are just facts. Have you seen the photos of Bill Clinton with the underage girl? I'm just telling you right now, man. Like, I don't understand that at all, right? And let me say this: the fact that the media won't cover the stories here in Arkansas that are important, I'm talking about the big stories, is the exact same thing as Amy Robach saying, "I had it all 3 years ago. We had everything on the Clintons, and not one mainstream journalist has asked Amy Robach what she meant by that." It's been like 3 weeks. There's not been one saying, "Hey, Amy, can I interview you? I'd like to do a story on this story that Project Veritas broke. What did you mean when you said you had everything on Bill Clinton and that you had it all 3 years ago on Epstein? What did you mean by that?" Nothing. Crickets. Because the media is lying to you and actively deceiving you to protect something. Back in a moment.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
Who is the founder of Sun Paper of Shandong Province in China. I also want to recognize Secretary Ma of Shandong Province.
As President Trump said just this week, in his words, we rebuilt China over the last 25 years.
Last November, as you know, I traveled to Shandong Province. I met with Chairman Lee. I toured Sun Paper Company along with Mike Preston. While in China, we signed a letter of intent on behalf of the state of Arkansas with Sun Paper, indicating that Sun Paper wanted to put a major bioproducts mill in South Arkansas.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, yeah, I pulled the story up. Okay, Bill Bowden, November 22nd, headline, Keep the Faith in the Truth, Bill Clinton says, at event celebrating newspaper's 200th birthday. Democracy faces new peril, he says. This is Bill Clinton speaking at the 200th celebration, the 200th anniversary of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. And this is how the story starts. You ready for this? Quote, when Russian President Vladimir Putin hacked the Democratic Party's computer system in 2016. Stop. For some reason, in the Mueller investigation, they never investigated whether that was true. When Russian President Vladimir Putin hacked the Democratic Party's computer system in 2016. Oh, again, that's what he asked the Ukrainian president, Donald Trump. Hey, tell me about CrowdStrike and the Ukraine and the Democrat server in 2016 elections. What do you know about that? And all of a sudden, the whistleblower is activated. Not because of investigate the Bidens, but because investigate all of the Democrats. Because William Barr and John Durham have successfully met several times with intelligence officials, with our allies like the Italians, the Australians, I think New Zealand. And the Democrats are like, oh no, please do not cooperate with the Trump administration, asking questions about what we have done. That's why they're trying to impeach him. Listen, I'm sorry, I'm going to get through this. We're about out of time. When Russian President Vladimir Putin hacked the Democrat Party's computer system in 2016 and bombarded people with sensational fake stories on social media, his real goal, quote, was to destroy the faith of voters and whether what they were reading was true, former President Bill Clinton said Thursday night. Their real goal is to break the conviction that we know and we can act on what we know and we can predict the consequences of acting on what we know. Bill Clinton, again, speaking to a crowd of 900 people, the 200th anniversary of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Again, at some point, when all of the information about Bill Clinton is finally out there and mainstream, and I mean mainstream, maybe it's 50 years from now before it's really accepted, people are going to have questions about why the state of Arkansas continued to legitimize somebody who's flying around the world with Jeffrey Epstein. The world, according to Amy Robach of ABC News, we had it all 3 years ago, the world's most prolific pedophile.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
In Arkansas.
The Communist Party has set its sights on controlling 90% of the world's most advanced industries, including robotics, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence. To win the commanding heights of the 21st century economy, Beijing has directed its bureaucrats and businesses to obtain American intellectual property, the foundation of our economic leadership, by any means necessary.
Chairman Lee and I met yesterday. Chairman Lee indicated to me that Sun Paper has selected Arkadelphia in Clark County as the location of a $1 billion bioproducts mill.
Beijing now requires many American businesses to hand over their trade secrets as the cost of doing business in China. It also coordinates and sponsors the acquisition of American firms to gain ownership of their creations. Worst of all, Chinese security agencies have masterminded the wholesale theft of American technology, including cutting-edge military blueprints. And using that stolen technology, the Chinese Communist Party is turning plowshares into swords on a massive scale.
Well, thank you all for joining us via Skype from Beijing this morning. Here in Beijing, it is 10 p.m. in the evening. I've had a very successful trip to China.
China now spends as much on its military as the rest of Asia combined. And Beijing has prioritized capabilities to erode America's military advantages on land, at sea, in the air, and in space.
I've spoken at Tsinghua University here in Beijing, which was a treat for me to speak with young Chinese students about Arkansas, and also to talk about the relationship between China and the United States.
China wants nothing less than to push the United States of America from the Western Pacific and attempt to prevent us from coming to the aid of our allies. But they will fail. Beijing is also using its power like never before. Chinese ships routinely patrol around the Senkaku Islands, which are administered by Japan. And while China's leader stood in the Rose Garden at the White House in 2015 and said that his country had, and I quote, no intention to militarize the South China Sea. Today, Beijing has deployed advanced anti-ship and anti-air missiles atop an archipelago of military bases constructed on artificial islands. China's aggression was on display this week when a Chinese naval vessel came within 45 yards of the USS Decatur as it conducted freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea, forcing our ship to quickly maneuver to avoid collision. Despite such reckless harassment, the United States Navy will continue to fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows and our national interests demand. We will not be intimidated, and we will not stand down.
And we'll be calling on multiple prospects in China, as well as continuing our relationship with Sun Paper in Shandong Province.
In recent years, China has taken a sharp U-turn toward control and oppression of its own people. Today, China has built an unparalleled
think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Let's see, familycouncil.org. There we go. Pulling up the website. Some great headlines here. You can see this if you want to be updated about what's going on here in Arkansas, as well as national issues concerning traditional American values and the family. Hey, matter of fact, here to talk more about that, we have Family Council's Luke McCoy is back with us. Luke, how are you, sir, on this Tuesday before Thanksgiving?
Paul, I'm great. Thankful to live in the United States for sure, but challenged by the issues that are presented in this great country and trying to do something about it like you are.
Man, I'm glad you started that way. We were just talking, Joe and I, and some other folks as well yesterday I was talking with. You know, we have a lot. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, but we got a lot of stuff to be thankful for here in this great country. And there's just and I'm looking forward to it. You know, I'm really optimistic, really excited to see the, folks on my side of the family and to just be thankful, be thankful to be alive. Isn't it great to be alive?
There's a lot the scriptures say about that and about all sorts of other blessings and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good to be an American. I had saw a post on Facebook the other day where some lady was sharing a tweet from a gentleman who said, basically he was saying, how's that capitalism look when you've got people living in their cars in urban areas and they still can't get access to health care and so on and so forth? And I thought for a few minutes, and I was wanting to respond. I usually don't respond anymore to controversial stuff on Facebook because I don't have time to pull back and forth. But basically, I just responded and I said, capitalism isn't perfect, but you know what? Lots of people are flocking to the United States and to other developed countries that have a capitalistic society and some rights and so on. No one's fleeing to Venezuela. Mm-hmm. No one's fleeing to North Korea. No one's fleeing to a whole bunch of other countries that are broken and typically are socialistic, communistic, and are a threat to the individual and property rights.
No, you're exactly right. And to your point, there has never been somebody who's put their family on a raft down in South Florida to try to make it to Cuba and go through shark-infested waters to do so. That has never
it would probably be a cheap American trying to get down there. So they're not going down there for a capitalistic society or individual rights.
Exactly. But the reverse happens all the time. Okay, so Luke, you mentioned Facebook. And so this Chick-fil-A happened last week, the Chick-fil-A situation where they quit giving to these Christian charities and making these politically correct moves so that they can move into other markets is what it looks like to me. And so somebody on Facebook wrote, listen, folks, come on, the gospel, thankfully, the gospel does not, live, or die based on what Chick-fil-A does. And you know what? That person is exactly right. Exactly. That person is exactly right. But I did post, I did comment. I was like, yeah, that is true, but I'm still disappointed. And that's kind of where I am. I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, well, I just am really disappointed in Chick-fil-A. That's all. What do you think?
I'm still on the fence as far as what I'm going to do with my fast food dollars.
Oh.
But I did get some. I don't have a urge to go out and just, man, I want to go help Chick-fil-A again.
Yeah.
Because beforehand, when I ate Chick-fil-A, it's because it was good, it was somewhat convenient, and I knew I was supporting an organization that shared the same values. But this is what I learned just yesterday. There's a site called lifesitenews.com, and Family Council, we use this occasionally. They're a big pro-life news outlet, but they also cover other issues and stories. And what they reported on was actually on Friday. They issued this article. Chick-fil-A was already moving left, but nobody noticed it until it came to the LGBT lobby. Basically, a few things in this article point to where Chick-fil-A had folks on the inside that weren't your Donald Trump, Rick Santorum, Marco Rubio, social conservative, or fill in the blank conservative. It looks like they had hired a gentleman. Let's see, his name is, he was the executive director of the CFA Foundation, Rodney D. Bullard, a former White House fellow and assistant U.S. attorney. Now, some may have mistaken him for a conservative because he was a fellow in the Bush administration, but was an Obama donor and more recently had donated to Hillary Clinton's campaign while at Chick-fil-A, end quote.
Okay.
And so he became the vice president of corporate social responsibility. Why would a family-based, family-led, fill in the blank, whatever good thing you want to say about Chick-fil-A, why would they have a Obama donor and Hillary Clinton donor as their vice president of corporate social responsibility? I don't play high management corporate type positions and so on. I've never been involved. I don't know if this guy was just really good at what he did, but it just seems really odd that higher-ups, Dan Caffey himself, maybe and others, wouldn't have vetted someone like a vice president of an area of donating. And what was interesting, the article also pointed out, is they used to be called something else. I forget exactly. It's in the article, but they changed it. The article made note that they changed it to corporate social responsibility. Well, I think you all and your listeners, you and your listeners, Paul and I, know that that's sort of like PC talk.
Yeah.
Corporate social responsibility.
Yeah, the title in and of itself, it's like, good grief. I mean, why? Why do you even need that? I think a lot. Your morals and ethics determine your social responsibility. From an individual perspective, and that would also influence what you do in your business. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. Well, the article goes on to say that as Chick-fil-A was looking to expand internationally, they hired a firm called, they hired a firm called Navigator. It's an international lobbying firm, and it's basically, if you were to get a description from a gentleman up in Canada who is the president of the Institute for Canadian Values, which is a group like Family Council, sort of kind, not exactly, but a conservative group. They describe this firm, Navigator, as the #1 gay lobbying firm in Canada.
Oh.
So, and then you add to it, the article goes on, the gentleman who wrote it from lifesitenews.com goes on to say that the Chick-fil-A Foundation will be donating to Covenant House as part of this recent switch, which is proudly supports LGBTQ type causes. So here's where I was thinking, Paul, and I think a lot of folks stand. Hindsight's 20/20. But if I'm an organization like Chick-fil-A and I stand for family values, traditional marriage, so forth and so on, and then we, the contracts with Salvation Army and Fellowship of Christian Athletes ends, okay, but then all of a sudden we've taken on this other organization in place of Salvation Army, Covenant House, that takes care of like homelessness and things like that, I believe, that is pro-LGBTQ. I'm baffled. I say I'm on the fence, but I'm sort of leaning away from only eating at Chick-fil-A when it's convenient. So I wanted to talk about some of these things. I think a lot of people, maybe your listeners and a lot of folks out there, they're just familiar with what they see on the news media or the headline on Facebook. And so, I'm still going to eat some Chick-fil-A, probably, but I'm not going to go out of my way, definitely, to promote any Chick-fil-A.
Man, that is some interesting information, Luke. Like, I had no idea that, you could chart their move left. That this has kind of been a long time coming, so we really shouldn't be surprised here. They've, and I guess what's frustrating to me as a conservative is, you're kind of seeing the Walmartization, if that's a word, of a corporation like Chick-fil-A. And I don't know why all of these corporations, they seem, once they get big enough, they seem to have to be, they turn into a bunch of leftists. And, I just don't get it. I don't understand.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jerry met with some folks at Walmart at one point, and I remember they were saying they were trying to recruit good talent to Northwest Arkansas, and from the West Coast and the East Coast. And basically, Jerry said Sam Walton built Walmart from people from Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas. Built it in the largest corporation ever. What's wrong with people here? We have creative people here, but anyway.
Yeah.
There's more about Chick-fil-A's past, too. There was, I think, some comments back when Obergefell ruling came down from the Supreme Court, where Dan Cathy took down his tweet, and just little by little. And, we shouldn't be completely shocked that these sort of things happen. Just take the verse. The love of money is the root of all evil. I mean, that causes so many people to turn. We see it a lot in politics. Money seems to be the downfall and leads back to everything, and a lot of corruption and unethical and immoral dealing. Money.
Yeah.
Money. But, Paul, I don't know how much more time we have left. Do you want me to move on to the other things?
I'd like to talk a little bit about some rights that we as Americans should be uniquely thankful for, because it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so last week I thought, is there anything that we Americans have that no one else has, or almost no one else has at all in the world, as far as like rights, constitutional rights? And this is what I found out. I found out three things. One is many people who live on the earth who have quote-unquote rights have them statutorily. They don't have it in a constitution or something very similar. So I thought that was interesting. I didn't realize that. So we should be thankful that it'd be really, really difficult, much more difficult for legislators here in the United States to change our laws. But in other countries, they can be changed statutorily. That's a much lower threshold and much easier process and so forth. But here are two specific rights that I found. There may be more. I'm not a lawyer. I depend on other people. I contacted them. But these are two things that we should be especially grateful for. One's going to be no surprise. And I'm not going to talk about stuff like the right not to have soldiers quartered in your house. I don't think that's really entertaining or interesting. And while I'm thankful for that, I guess, but nonetheless, I kind of wouldn't mind some soldiers maybe hanging out on my property occasionally.
At this point,
might be helpful. But
yeah, that's funny.
But here's two rights, Paul, that seriously we as Americans should be very considerate for. And like I said, one is not going to be a shock. It's the First Amendment and how what's the word? I forget the word. The lawyer told me yesterday, but the breadth, the expansiveness of the First Amendment. 5
freedoms.
Over in like Britain. I'm sorry.
There's 5 core freedoms in that First Amendment. I mean, it's a dandy, that one.
Yeah, and so like over in Europe, you have the freedom of speech to a certain extent. And don't get me wrong, we do too over here. But over in like Europe, like Britain, you can be accused of libel much easier. Like the media has to be careful and has to give certain things, from what I was told, approved by the Queen or the government and so on. I don't know the exact details necessarily, but they have to get approved by government officials, or else they could be accused of libel. And just think, here in the United States, and I know this may be something a lot of your listeners and conservatives don't appreciate, since Donald Trump gets attacked day in, day out, but freedom of speech is very nice, and I like it a lot. So, but the breadth, the expanse of our First Amendment is very unique to the world. Mm-hmm. And this is, well, I'm talking to lawyers at Americans United for Life, Alliance Defending Freedom, gentlemen here in Little Rock. These are men and women that I hold in very high regard, high respect, and so I trust their judgment. The other one that's kind of unique I didn't think of was the right to a grand jury. Now, I'm not talking about trial by jury, because a lot of other, some other countries have a trial by jury. I'm talking about the right to a grand jury, which is basically this. If you're charged with a capital offense or an infamous crime, you have the right for a grand jury to be convened, gathered, and to gather the facts of the case. And so, this is Thanksgiving. I'm sorry I don't have anything more earth-shattering or
no, I think it's
sexy
awesome
or jazzy, but nonetheless, excuse me. These are things we should be thankful for. I'm sure we're thankful for a lot more.
Yeah, well,
in our Constitution.
You mentioned the first. You mentioned the First Amendment. We're talking with Luke McCoy, FamilyCouncil.org. You mentioned the First Amendment and the religious freedom aspect. That also goes, I think, right in with conscience protection. I know we're trying to get conscience protection legislation passed here in the future in Arkansas, aren't we?
Yes, conscience protection, as I mentioned probably in one of my last segments, is going to be one of the, if not the most important item on our legislative agenda, assuming no other odd issues are added to the liberal cause that we have to fight. But conscience protection is the freedom of thought, the freedom of belief, and so forth, and more importantly, not to violate such thoughts, conscience, beliefs, so on and so forth. And as we head into this kind of more weird, things become more subjective, things tossed from the left that become more subjective and weird.
Yeah.
Conservatives' conscience is going to be challenged. And so we're excited about what we can do with conscience as we see the world getting more and more weird.
Can I ask you this? So, coming up, I know this is kind of a ways away, the next legislative session, 2021. Is there anything people can do to help you guys out at Family Council? Like when you guys are going to be pushing conscience protection legislation, the left is going to combat that politically as much as they can. You may even have a little trouble in the Republican Party. Who knows? So is there anything people can do to stay updated and to help you guys do what you do at Family Council?
Yes, I would urge your listeners to contact Family Council. You can get on our website, Family Council, COUNCIL.org. Our phone number's on there. There's info@familycouncil.org. They can email. They can contact one of us on Facebook. My coworker Kent Yang, Jerry Cox, Sharice Dean, Luke McCoy, myself, David Cox, and say, hey, I want to be a part of your rapid response team. It's hard to believe, but if legislators, state reps and state senators, get enough phone calls from their district, they will seriously consider moving off the fence or changing their decision to whatever their constituents say. Now, don't get me wrong, a very liberal senator or representative is probably not going to support conscience rights unless they are bombarded with thousands of phone calls. But even at that, I doubt they would do it. They just leave the room, and miss a vote. But you've got some other conservatives, or Republicans maybe I should call them, I don't know, whatever, that are against this conscience because of the governor's stance and attitude on it. But if we can get, let's say, 30 or 40 people in a state rep district, that's not impossible. That's not hard to do. We can probably find the people. We just got to get them to pick up the phone or send an email or a text message to that legislator. And so this is where I'm going with this, Paul. We have a thing called Rapid Response Team at Family Council. We need people across the state to be Rapid Response Team coordinators, where then they can then recruit people in that state rep district, in that state senate district. And of course, obviously, a lot of the state reps will mirror over to the state senate district. So we're hoping to get this. We really feel like this is going to be our silver bullet to get conscience at least passed legislatively.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I really think, by 2021, I really think there's going to be so much support for this piece of legislation to protect people in the healthcare industry, from having to do things that they don't want to do that are against their religious beliefs or against their conscience. I think it's such an American concept, and there are people on the left that are about force, and we've got to stop that. I think it's going to be a no-brainer coming up in 2021. Luke, and I would encourage people to be a part of the rapid response team at Family Council as well to make sure that happens. Luke McCoy, I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving, sir. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
God bless you and your listeners.
All righty. Folks, we're going to take a break. We have a really special treat coming up at the bottom of this hour. We're going to be talking to Dr. Wayne Johnson. He's a candidate for the United States Senate out of Georgia. He was on Tucker Carlson last week. And we're going to talk about the student loan debt crisis and what we need to do about it. Don't go anywhere.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
Surveillance state, and it's growing more expansive and intrusive, often with the help of U.S. technology. And when it comes to religious freedom, a new wave of persecution is crashing down on Chinese Christians,
exposing
Buddhists,
the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yeah, so just so you know, we covered this first hour, but the Christmas tree officially arrived at the White House, and the White House Twitter account actually called it the Christmas tree. So that's cool. No more holiday tree nonsense. Judicial Watch. Check this out. This is from November 25th, so yesterday at judicialwatch.com. Communists working in U.S. steel, working in the United States, steal billions in taxpayer-funded scientific research. Have you heard about this? Billions of dollars in scientific research funded by American taxpayers has been stolen by China right under our noses, and the U.S. government has no plan to stop the ongoing theft of the highly valued intellectual property. In the meantime, the publicly funded work is helping the communist nation meet its goal of becoming a world leader in science and technology, according to a scathing report published by the United States Senate. If you're Asa Hutchinson and the Arkansas Economic Development Team, you guys probably just want to ignore this like you ignore everything else. Quote, this report exposes how American taxpayer-funded research has contributed to China's global rise over the last 20 years. During that time, China openly recruited U.S.-based researchers, scientists, and experts in the public and private sector to provide China with knowledge and intellectual capital in exchange for monetary gain and other benefits. Monetary gain and other benefits. Law firm. While the Chinese communists run their illicit operation on our own soil, the federal government's grant-making and law enforcement agencies sit by and let it happen. This includes the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the vast law enforcement agency charged with protecting and defending the U.S. against terrorist attacks, foreign intelligence threats and espionage, cyber-based attack, and high-technology crimes. None of the government agencies impacted by the costly crimes have bothered to develop coordinated response to mitigate the ongoing threat, Senate investigators found. These failures continue to undermine the integrity of the American research enterprise and endanger our national security, the report says. And you know, that's bad, but it's a very good thing that the United States Senate is looking into this. Dianne Feinstein had a Chinese spy working for her for 20 years. I think she knew about it personally. And here in Arkansas, we just going to continue to ignore the threat of China.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
Muslims. Last month, Beijing shut down one of China's largest underground churches. Across the country, authorities are tearing down crosses, burning Bibles, and imprisoning believers. And Beijing has now reached a deal with the Vatican that gives the avowedly atheist Communist Party a direct role in appointing Catholic bishops. For China's Christians, these are desperate times.
So, do you like him as a candidate?
I think he's brought a lot to the table. It's not my message. I worry about the party in terms of expanding our base and what the message does to our recruitment of Hispanics, outreach to minorities. And so you've got to worry about the fall election and whether this is a message that's going to carry in Michigan, Ohio, and Florida, and those states that we need to carry.
The American people deserve to know. In response to the strong stand that President Trump has taken, Beijing is pursuing a comprehensive and coordinated campaign to undermine support for the president, our agenda, and our nation's most cherished ideals.
I think you've got to listen to what he says and how he conducts himself. And I don't know that he would be that different from what he is now in negotiating with Vladimir Putin. So,
you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
No, I don't think it's a good thing. We need people who, in the presidency, that understand how the world works, understands that there's a time for bluster and there's a time for reason.
The Chinese Communist Party is rewarding or coercing American businesses, movie studios, universities, think tanks, scholars, journalists, and local, state, and federal officials.
And then, Chairman, you'll look out in the audience and you'll see multiple
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the show. Thanks for starting the beginning of your day with us here, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. I don't know if you guys caught Tucker Carlson last week. He had a guy by the name of Dr. Wayne Johnson on the program. Now, Dr. Johnson is wanting to be appointed as the next senator for Georgia because you've got, I think, Senator Isaacson is he's not going to continue in that office anymore because of health problems. And Dr. Wayne Johnson joins us now on the phone. Dr. Johnson, how are you, sir?
I'm fine, Paul. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Now, I want to talk about your candidacy for the U.S. Senate in Georgia here in just a minute, but I caught that segment on Tucker Carlson, and let me just tell you, I think your ideas are really unique, and this student loan crisis is something that we definitely need to discuss. Now, I want to remind our listeners that from 2017 to 2019, you were a senior official in President Trump's administration. He's serving as the Chief Strategy and Transformation Officer and Chief Operating Officer for the Department of Education's Office of Federal Student Aid. So you have a unique perspective. What needs to change about the federal student loan program?
Well, the basic thing that needs to change is the federal government needs to stop making loans for people to go to school. The program has gotten unbelievably out of hand. Over the past 10 years, we've added well over $1 trillion to the amount of debt burden that's on people's backs, and it's because the loan program that the federal government has in place makes it extraordinarily easy for schools to convince students to take down high levels of debt burden in order to go to school there. So we got to stop making loans. But if we're going to stop making loans, we do need to put forth some type of a grant program that will allow people to at least get through an undergraduate degree. But that's the answer: is stop making the loans.
Stop making the loans. So the incentive structure is all it's reversed, right? I mean, these schools, these colleges, universities, they have no incentive to control their costs because they have what is essentially the government guaranteeing customers for them, right?
It's exactly correct. And Tucker Carlson picked that up in some of his earlier segments. He had pointed to that. I think what I helped him to appreciate was a little bit of, I added some clarity in terms of exactly how the mechanics are working. But the federal government will make loans to people up to an unlimited level based upon what a college says is their cost to attend. So there's no control or constraint on the colleges and universities to keep them from continuing to raise their prices because they know that there's an ever-ending flow of money coming from the government in that regard.
So I've got this. I've got an op-ed that I found. Again, we're talking with Dr. Wayne Johnson. He's a candidate for U.S. Senate out of Georgia. Paragraph 2, the solution to relieving the personal financial burden of student loan debt is for the United States Congress to enact law that would fully cancel federal student loan debt. Moreover, to be equitable, people who did pay their student loan debt should be given credit for having done so. And there would be also a path forward so that post-high school education, whether vocational or traditional college, can be pursued on a basis that is debt-free. So I read that, and I wanted to just ask, so is your idea free second or higher education? Is that what you think needs to happen?
Well, first of all, I'm a Republican, and people keep asking me, why is a Republican setting forth such a bold, comprehensive, and I like to think decisive plan? And the answer is because we do have a social good that we've got to put in place in order to help people get through a certain level of post-high school education. And so when I started thinking this thing through, and again, 2.5 years front and center working at the Department of Ed, getting a doctorate in the subject before, and 35 years in consumer finance, mostly in the credit card space, I think I have a unique perspective on the responsibilities associated with, debt incurrence. But the specifics of what I'm advocating, and it is I'm a very physically conservative approach, but the first part of it is going forward, there needs to be a certain amount of money that's allocated to somebody to attend post-high school education, and that can be job and skills training as well as academic pursuit. But that needs to have a defined limit. It needs to be, this is as much we're going to make available and no more. And that's basically contrasting against today's current environment of ever increasing amount of unlimited funding. With regard to, once you make that decision of what's a go forward amount, then you come back into and look at your current file. And our current file has 44 million customers, 37 million of which have student loan debt of less than $50,000. So if you're going to give $50,000 going forward, which is what my plan advocates for, then you do $50,000 worth of relief of people on the books, and that'll take care of 37 million people, and a large number of people from state of Arkansas. And in the case of Georgia, it would relieve the debt on 1.7 million people, about $53 billion. So we're talking about serious money here. But then you got to really take a look at the 2/3 of the people that never pursued any type of education post-high school, and they should have the ability to tap into that, and I'm looking at a 10-year look back on that process. And then you got people that paid for it themselves. And, a lot of folks say, well, the socialistic aspect of relieving all this debt and going forward, what about me? I paid for it on my own. And quite frankly, those folks need to be given tax credits equal to an amount up to $50,000. So the equity for everybody is the basically one of the cornerstones and driving elements of my plan.
So, do you see this plan as correcting a problem that the government has really caused here? I mean, I know people voluntarily, when you're 18 years old, okay, you're going into debt. But at 18 years old, you're just ready to get to college. You're not really thinking 4 years ahead. And again, that's still your personal responsibility, a lot of people would say. But has the government caused this problem?
The answer is absolutely. The institutions of trust, the universities and the government, two major institutions that the people are taught to trust, have breached that trust. And whether it's an 18 or 20-year-old or even a 40 or 45-year-old racking up to the school and saying, hey, I'd like to advance myself, the way in which the system presents itself is, hey, this is the way it's customarily done. This is, quote, even a best practice, which is something that sends a chill down my spine, that's being advanced to the student. You're going to get whatever, the state's going to give you or whatever the school's going to give you. But mostly the schools, what they're giving up for the most part is false discounting. And then, oh, by the way, here's an award letter, and baked into this award letter is this financial aid coming from the federal government. And they fail to tell you that aid actually is manifested by some very unorthodox loan instruments. And then they say, oh, by the way, don't sweat it, because at the end of the day, you're going to be caught up in you're going to be able to pay for it through an income-based repayment plan. And then they forgot to tell you that, oh, by the way, that's going to create negative amortization. And so the $20,000 you take down is actually going to wind up, after forbearances and deferments and all these other really bizarre schemes that are in place by the government, is going to grow to $120,000 or $150,000. So, yes, the government, what started off with good intentions, which is a straightforward loan program that somebody would pay up after 10 years, that would have a fixed amount of loan money available, with a couple of twists and turns under the previous administration, basically boiled down to this very convoluted set of 30 different repayment plans. And I've got a doctorate in the subject. Believe me, it's hard for me to understand this stuff. And at the end of the day, the students are basically, saying, well, this is the school, I trust them. The government, I trust them, or they wouldn't make this thing available to me. And consequently, they wake up and say, wait a minute, how did I get ambushed along the way to this higher ed pursuit? And it really becomes problematic for people that start but never finish.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It definitely does. I've heard about that phenomenon many, many times. So if the government caused the problem, I can definitely see how we would say that there's a lot of people out there who are victims of this.
Well, victims is, that's a term that has some legal connotations. But listen,
right.
But let me say this: the government caused the problem, and the government was certainly highly complicit in the problem. And it's, there's been some. There was an author that wrote a book called Indebtedness, which I found pretty profound, because what she basically said was that there's a student debt complex that's a combination of the government doing its activities and the schools doing their activities, and then of course you've got people that feed around the fringes of this, which can be very servicing organizations. So there's a whole complex at play to perpetuate this, and an astounding number is 80% of all the cash going into the higher education system in the United States is coming from the federal government. And so when you got that much, of the economic driver coming from one source, you got what you got. But the bottom line is this will only get fixed. We were endeavoring to fix it operationally. Tremendous strides forward. Secretary DeVos, fully supportive of that. President's administration, fully supportive of that. Amazing things. But I woke up and said, what we're doing is just making this machine that's causing these problems run much more efficiently. And what we got to do is we got to, basically turn to Congress. And in my opinion, the Senate's where this has got to be driven from, in order to make these changes that are necessary to the law.
We're talking with Dr. Wayne Johnson. He's a candidate for U.S. Senate out of Georgia. Now, can you tell me a little bit about the political process here? Right, I understand. I did a little research. You're wanting the governor of Georgia, Governor Kemp, there to appoint you to this Senate vacancy at this point, right?
Yeah, Governor Kemp actually put forth a very transparent application process where he allowed for people that are not normally out of the political realm to set themselves forward as someone that he could appoint to replace Johnny Isaacson at the end of the year. He's got over 500 applicants for that. He's now in his decision process of appointment. Presented myself. Hopefully, he'll decide that I'm the right person to go into the Senate so that I could hit the ground running in January and start making these changes that would be good for the state of Georgia. But in order to make them good for the state of Georgia, got to actually make them good for the entire country.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, I want to tell everybody about your website. Your website, if you want to check this out, folks, is johnsonsenate.com. That's johnsonsenate.com, and you can find out more. You could also see his interview there from Tucker Carlson. The last thing I want to talk about, and I know this is kind of backtracking a little bit, sir, but in this op-ed, I also see that when a student takes this money and goes into debt, this is also affecting their credit score, isn't it? So it's going to make it harder for them to buy a house or to get a car or something like that, right?
Well, it does, and it actually manifests in two ways. Even if somebody is performing as agreed, and one of the other interesting pieces of information is only 25% of the people are actually paying down interest and principal each month. So even if you make your payment, your outstanding loan balance is growing. So what's interesting is on your credit bureau report, your loan balance would be continuing to show that it's growing month over month, which when you do go through all this, the credit scoring calculations, that flags up some stuff. But then also a large number of people miss their initial payments because they just did not know they owed the money. I mean, that situation where they show up and sign a 10-year master promissory note without having any understanding of the amounts of money owing or the interest rates, people either don't complete school or they do complete school, but they actually do not know how much money they owe or where to make a payment. So that starts showing up as as missed payments. And so while the accuracy of the fact that the payment was missed is going into the report, the fact that the people didn't even know they owed the money is an unfair element of reporting. Mm-hmm. So people's credit reports are getting severely impaired because of the student loan, the federal student loan reporting of credit bureau information.
So, and for real this time, this is my last question. What happens if we do nothing? What is there a crisis and is this bubble going to pop? What happens?
Well, what's interesting is this is not a bubble that will ever pop because the way it's funded, the government borrows money through the Treasury. They put the money out. The money flows, into the schools, and then individuals are taking on, their fractional piecemeal of the indebtedness obligation, and then so instead of it being a big bang, like the financial meltdown was, with regard to the mortgage crisis, this will be lots of very significant issues that relates to individual families. And so this is one of those situations. It's in my opinion, it's an abomination that's there. Everybody's aware of it, but because there's not a big bang associated with it, and a quote gigantic resolution effort, it'll just continue to erode the fabric of America. So if we don't do anything, just more and more people are going to get into more and more debt. The schools will continue to raise prices because they have no check on it, and we'll be talking about this a few years from now. Instead of being 1.6 trillion, will be 3 trillion, and I can even see the day when it'll be 5 trillion.
Wow.
And so what's happening is the reality is that people are not getting married because they don't want to take on each other's indebtedness obligation. People are, if they're not, they're also not having children. They're not buying homes. We could just go on and on in terms of what would continue to erode, and it's a level of basically student loan debt depression, not too dissimilar to what happened, earlier in our century. But the net of it is we have this opportunity at this point in time to make a decisive course correction where we can say, yes, higher education or post-high school education is important. We're going to make an allocation towards that. We're going to reform the finance system. And, oh, by the way, to make things right, because the government did create this problem. When the government does things right, they get it really right. When the government does things wrong, they can get it really wrong because of the scale that we're dealing with. One of the interesting things, if you look at the macroeconomic effects of student loan debt cancellation, and there's a couple of reports out there. One was put out by the Levi Institute, and it's entitled "The Macroeconomic Effects of Student Loan Debt Cancellation." It's incredibly powerful what those economic models show in terms of the positive effect on the economy, household formation, and what have you. So I would look at this solution to this problem also being a great stepping stone to a very significant economic stimulation.
It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating that the student loan program, what I just kind of heard you say there, the student loan program in some cases is actually hurting the American family, the idea of having kids and that sort of thing. And that would be the complete opposite of what it was claiming to do originally. You know what I mean? Which is to help
exactly.
you. That's incredible. Dr. Wayne Johnson, good luck to you, sir. I appreciate your big ideas, and I really appreciate you spending time with us this morning and educating my audience.
Well, I appreciate you. I've had an opportunity since y'all contacted me to go back and look at a lot of y'all's segments. Y'all do some really important, powerful things. So it was an honor to be on your program.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Love to do it again sometime. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Folks, we're going to take a break. We're going to make a YouTube video of this, put it up at conduitnews.com, and we will be back here in just a moment.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
Members of the governor's cabinet, we're also here to support you. You'll see multiple members of the state legislative assembly. They're here to support you, and specifically Senator Caldwell, Senator Ingram, Representative Murdoch, Representative Hollowell. These are your senators and your representatives now. You call on them, and they're going to help you. Guarantee it. And Senator English, I saw you out there too. Thank you for being here as well.
As we speak, Beijing is employing a whole-of-government approach, using political, economic, and military tools as well as propaganda to advance its influence and benefit its interests in the United States.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the
money, power, prestige, essence, available now from aristocrats serving Arkansas. From Zenata Rhino Collection. The fragrance of backroom deals. Nepotism. The aroma of higher taxes. Subliminal deception. Deep state. Ace. Made right here in Arkansas by a taxpayer-funded Chinese factory. Every bottle carefully crafted for you. Gender neutral. Nothing says aristocrat like Essence of Bureaucrat. Essence of Bureaucrat by Asa.
Available now in the Marble Palace gift shop.
Paul Harrell parody. Is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Yes. Here we go. Welcome back. Wow, that was very educational. Very, very educational, you know. And look, you know, I know I'm hesitant, you know, almost anytime the government causes a problem, I'm going to be hesitant when they fix it. You know what I mean? But this is a huge issue. You know, I understand why Tucker Carlson had Dr. Johnson on, because Tucker Carlson is, you got to check out Carlson's debate with Charlie Kirk. It really, really good about, you know, what he believes the government should be doing in terms of, like, you know, what does protecting the American people look like, and just the basic, you know, idea of the family and having kids and reproducing and that sort of thing. It's pretty fascinating stuff. The fact that the student loan program, federal student loan program, is actually hurting families is not a surprise to me. That the government's initial goal ends up doing the opposite of what they set out to do in that. And again, we're going to put it up on YouTube. Oh, by the way, listen, I know we have some sound disparities going on, and this is part of the big changes that we're going to be going through in the next month or so. We're going to be fixing all of those. But like right now on Facebook, we have people that are saying sometimes that the sound is not high enough, okay? But then on YouTube, we have people saying that the sound is too loud, and we have, you know, a hot mic or something. And we know how to fix that, but it's everything will become clear very soon. The telephone number 870-275-9799. Here is your meme of the day. Another day, another Billy Madison meme. This is pretty good. A comment on the transgender athletes. Courtesy of the Instagram, Trump.ya.boy.2020. Trump ya boy 2020. It's a picture of the little O'Doyle kid in the third grade, Billy Madison, when he's in the third grade. And they say female athletes at the top of their sport. And then a picture of Adam Sandler holding the dodgeball. Transgender athletes. Now you're all in big trouble. You probably need to go see the meme. It's funny. You should see the meme instead of hearing me describe it. If you're just on radio, you can go to the Twitter page, Twitter account at Conduit News. We'll post it up right now. Arkansas, be safe.